Hi guys, how we doing? We're back to the chalk paint, and this is part 2 of the shelf unit. So, what we got here is, we got some white paint in a cup. I'm only going to make, okay, normally when you make this, you can make it by an 8 ounce mixture, which is 8 ounces of paint to 8 ounces of plaster, a Paris, and water, or you can use 45, which is a joint compound of plaster and Paris and gypsum. And that stuff there is basically what they use to drywall. If you've done any drywall and you know what that is, it comes in bags. You can't use, I can't say you can't. I've never used the stuff that comes in a bucket to make this yet, because I don't have any available. If I get some, I will give it a try and see if it works, but I have not tried that yet. I happen to have, it's called Durabond, and it comes in a big bag like this. This is Durabond 90. That's just the 90 minutes of drying time basically, and that's just for drywall repair, or texturing, or whatever you want to use it for. Basically that's what I'm using to make my, this is the Valspar version. This stuff runs $27, I think. I've seen it at Lowe's or Home Depot on them. That's Valspar, so that's Lowe's, so that's probably $26, $27 for that can right there. Yes, it goes a long ways, it lasts for a long time, but if you have to make lots of different colors, or you want to do a lot of painting, like a lot of furniture, you're going to spend some massive money. This here works just as good, and I have had no problems with it in any way, shape, or form. I painted plenty of furniture. It becomes very durable. This, I think, is actually more durable than what this is, because when this cures, it forces, the thing about Durabond in plaster of Paris is basically what they do is they dry, they cause what do you want to call it? I should know this. I've done it a million times. They force the water out of the plaster itself. As the drying becomes, the molecules, I guess, shrink, which forces the water out of the paint and out of the plaster. And what happens is it literally turns it like stone. I mean, it becomes so durable. And it's just from like this here. I mixed this up a little while ago. Okay, as you can see, it's already hard in there. And it's forced all the water that was in there that I had mixed that. I had done a small repair on the back part that I'm going to put on there. Had a small hole in it, so I mixed a little bit up with some water, and that was about a half hour ago or so. This is how fast it dries when it's set by itself. Now I could sit here and work this with some water and bring it back to life, and slowly keep scraping that and turn that back. That's the only thing about this paint, is you do have to stir it. If you're not going to use it for a while, I recommend making a small amount of it at a time. Do not make a ton of it, because what happens is this is going to separate from the water eventually, whatever you put it in, unless you use it every single day. Now, I'm just going to show you guys how quickly. This is what they have on chalk paint. Okay, now I brought it back to, it's no longer hard. It's a pasty muck. But I'm not going to use that, because that there will have hard chunks in it and everything. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to show you guys how to mix this up real quick and make some chalk paint. And I'm going to show you guys how to paint with it. Basically, you can go back and watch my other video. This is a third of a cup, because I'm going to make less in this one. So there's a third of a cup of the plaster of Paris. I'm going to add just a tiny little bit more to it. So I do want this a little bit more chalky. So, I mean, you'll learn to fluctuate the amount of this with that to get your chalkiness. You want this to be like a thin slurry. You do not want this thick. So be a little abundant with the water at first when you first get started, because it wants to paste up like instantly. Just stir it once or twice, you'll feel it harden. Now go ahead and add some more water. Like I said, more liquid is better, because this is not going to, the extra water is not going to hurt it in any way, shape, or form. If you make it really thick, what's going to happen is when you pour it in that paint, it's going to want to harden like right away. I don't want this to harden for a long time. So I want it to break down as soon as I can get it. Keep it broke down for as long as I can by putting excess water to it. The excess water causes it to stay pliable for a lot longer. Now as I do this, I'm only making a small cup because if I'm going to do this, I don't have no major furniture to paint right now, so that means it would sit, and I don't want to waste it. So basically we got a little thin slurry. Now I'm going to add just a tiny bit. Now you're going to see there's bubbles, there's some of this paint. You'll notice that when you like you'll see it in my gray. I'll show you the gray, and there's little tiny like pellets that look like chunks of plaster in there, or chunks like if you've seen paint that's turned and you're like, oh, it's ruined. Well, this isn't. Just because you see them little things in there, they dissolve very quickly with a brush, and all that does is give you a harder surface on the top. When you sand, it gives you a little grittier, so it's not going to hurt it. As long as it stays a liquid form, you're fine. But you don't want that plaster to settle at the bottom, because it literally will just force the water to the top and they will separate, and then that will harden. It'll still harden underwater. That's the thing about Durabond or plaster of Paris. A lot of people do not know that it basically it's sort of waterproof. It expels water. It does not absorb water. You can put, when I used to drywall, you could put this over something that was literally sopping wet, like in bathrooms. We use this a lot in where water damage had been at. And you take the Durabond, mix it, and you only have, you fix it, usually you'll mix it very thick, and that gives you a very minimal amount of time for applying. So when you applied it, it's like apply it right now, but within a few minutes that literally will draw all the moisture in the surrounding area. Pull it out, dry hard, and you'll never have to worry about that spot leaking again. I've done it many times. It works very good. I recommend it. You can mix plaster of Paris and 45, they call it, and you'll get the same effect. But this is my simple chalk paint. Cheap, easy. Like I said, you just mix this together. I'm just keeping it stirred really good because I want to make sure it's really thinned out good. And I got all the chunks in there in the bottom of the cup. I normally don't mix this in a cup. I usually mix it in a can or something. So you're looking at that much to that much. I could go with a little bit more just to even it out. See if we can get a... Basically what you want is the same amount of plaster to go into the same amount of paint. You don't want it being less. If you do, you're going to not have as much chalkiness. By adding more, you can always add more later to it. If it isn't chalky enough, mix up another batch, add it to it, and have it just a tad bit thicker, which will make it more chalky. So basically it's on you, how chalky you want it to be. And there's no major thing, just pour this in here. Now when I stir this paint, I will be able to tell by the chalkiness of it. And it does not change your color. The white is just as white as any other ones will be. This will be just as white as it was when I poured it out of the can. And this here is just a latex paint. You can use this with any paint. I have found that acrylics work just as good. I went out and bought some of these. These are what I started doing it with. This right here, I would mix these. 1 cup of the plaster and water to make 1 cup full. Mix it to 1 8-ounce can of this. And these are just as paint samples that you can buy at Lowe's, Home Depot, any of them. You go in there and tell them, I want this color. They'll give you a can of this, which is full, 8 ounces. And then I just take this, pour it into another container, mix it, pour what I have back in here, and then I can use that. And like I said, I have this black here, which is just a bear. I didn't plan on buying a bear, but at Home Depot, that's what they give you. And it's hard to see, you can't see in this even with the light. But there's a liquid inside there. I know it's really impossible to see. But what happened is it separated a little bit, but the chalk paint is still in there. And it's very good. I've been using it. Basically, you got to keep it sealed and stir it. Plan on stirring this beforehand, before you're even going to use this. Now, when you come to this point here, you definitely want to stir. You want this to be fully mixed. And I can tell already I don't have near enough chalk in this. for that amount of paint I had. This paint's a lot thicker. That's another thing. If your paint's a very thick paint, like a Behr paint or one of them Dutch Boy, them are very, very, very thick paint. So you are going to need more of a chalk to that. So we're going to mix a little bit more. I have to watch my cup. So that's my main concern right now, is just not overfilling the cup. And what I'm planning to do is use a lot of this up. So that's why I'm trying to just mix what I need. Like I said, you can mix this as much as you're going to do. I would say stay within reason. If you're going to paint a big dresser or something, then you could mix, say, a coffee can full or a can of this size, a quart, and make it that way. Like I said, the consistency, there is really none. It's really to your preference. How chalky do you want your paint? I want mine a little chalkier. I like it on the chalkier side. It seems to give you a nicer finish, and it's forgiving. One thing about this here is, if you have any small burrs or cracks or small dents, I'm talking small, like where something's bumped into that furniture and you're going to redo a furniture, this here will slowly fill that over layers, and eventually you will get a completely smooth finish by standing in between your layers of paint. By standing in between those, this here is hardening, and it does say, like on this can here, it says it takes 30 days to fully cure. I've noticed mine within a week or two of painting them. It's extremely hard surface. You really are never going to get that back off if you go to do it. You're going to have to sand it literally to completely sand it off. Because once this Durabond hardens, it's like stone. That's why they call it Durabond. And I seem to like this better for the paint of this. And you can get Durabond at any home remodeling store, Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever places in your place. And if they don't carry the Durabond, like I said, you could go with a plaster of Paris, which is going to be basically the same thing. It's going to be just as hard. Plaster of Paris is a very, very hard what do you call it? Chemical or plaster that it turns so hard and it does repel water. That's why your ceramics and stuff, if you ever try to glue them together, most of your glues, they have water base or some kind of a base to them, and that's why it will not stick to your ceramic. It takes certain ceramic glue to mix it. That don't look bad, and like I said, it has not changed my color in any way or shape or form. We're going to apply a small coat of this to the back of this board. This board, what I did learn in my first one, if you've seen the picture of my first shelf, I'll move you guys back. Let me turn my viewfinder so I can see what I'm doing. Get you guys down where you can see this. Turn on some light. Okay. Get you guys focused in on that. Yes. Okay. So, this is how you basically try it and test it. I'm just going to take a brush, one of my artist brushes here. I don't have a small, I wasn't set up for this part yet. I'll have to take one out of my box, one of my small little wooden brushes. I got these art ones, and I noticed on these, they're a cheap version of them, but the very ends have this, I think what they did is they cut them, it must have been cut by a hot machine, because the one end of the corner, you can feel a little edge that's built up on there. So, where'd my scissors go? Excuse me a second. So I've just trimmed off the edges of these a little bit. I just take a pair of scissors and just, till it's smooth. If I run my fingers over it, I'm not feeling something. And like I said, it's a very simple process here. It's no different than anything else you're painting. Like I was saying, with my other one, I painted the gray and black white one. I put it all together, had the shelf installed in it, the back on it, the sides, everything, then I painted it. That's if you watch the video of Chris and Holly and them, you'll see That's me painting that shelf unit. Well, the thing about that was I went through a lot of painstaking painting, touching up, going back and forth from gray to white, white to gray, white to gray, because it was so hard to paint each surface. Like this, I'm not going to paint this whole thing with this little brush. I'm trying to see what kind of sandy, if it's has enough plaster of Paris in it, or Durban, and see if we're getting it gritty enough. I'm not really feeling no grit, but the whole thing is to let that dry for a minute. Once that dries, then I can feel it, see if it's gritty enough. If it's not gritty enough, and have that sandy finish to it. Basically, when you get done, it should feel like a dry sandy surface. Basically, like you got sand on it, on the inner paint, and now you got to wipe that off. So what I do is I usually will test it first, make sure it's to the consistency I want it. If it is, I'll go ahead and paint the whole thing. If it's not, add a little more plaster of Paris to it. And like I said, it's all to your preference. Like I said, a little bit more. If there was, say, a gouge in here, or something that got scraped against this, that little gouge will get filled in by that plaster. The plaster is heavier. It's going to fall in that little groove. Then it's going to settle and it's going to harden. So by the next coat I come over, it's going to fill it again and again until it's level. And then by putting those numerous coats on it, I'm going to get a completely smooth finish over everything. That's why I said about filling the holes. They don't have to be, basically you want to fill the holes so your paint don't pour down into it. But like I have an altercation right here. This here will be slightly, because what happened was the piece of plywood had got a crack in it and the piece of veneer started separating from a little hole. I think somebody tried to drill through it or something. It was just a piece of plywood I had that would fit the back of this. So I used it, like I said, to recycle, reuse, repurpose. The edges don't matter because you ain't going to see them. They're going to be on the back. So now I can feel that's already starting to dry. And that's another thing about this. This will dry very quickly. I do feel a sandy grit in that. It's not a lot. But I think it's going to be sufficient for what we want. And what you can do real easy by telling is throw another coat real quick after you put that one on. And you can see that this here has gotten actually whiter just by that little spot there. So that means is that's building up. This coat is lighter than this coat. That's what you want. As you build these layers, it's going to dry quicker, harder, and faster. This paint, I love this paint because, like I said before, it dries very quickly. And if you put a little heat to it or a little air moving in the summertime, I notice it's extremely hard to paint with this. Paint small sections at a time if you're out in a dry place. Like if it's 80 degrees outside and you're painting outside, make sure you only paint a small amount at a time because it will dry as fast as you're painting it. Keep your brush right here. Keep some water with you so you can keep dipping that brush in the water and applying. It's not going to hurt. All it's going to do is keep this thinned out enough for you to work it. And as you do that, let me show you guys. I don't have another cup for my water. I usually do. I can clean my brush with this. I wanted to show you guys. I don't know if it'll even show up. We're going to rinse that brush off real quick in my water. I guess I was going to show you guys the gray. So basically that white's done. If I do, I'll have to adjust it. If I have to adjust it as I'm painting, I will. It's not that hard. It's just, if it's not gritty enough, you're going to add a little more water to it. This is my gray. I just put in a coffee can. I mixed this. This I made last year. I don't notice about the top of the can. It got rusty, so I won't be doing that again. Because it did add a bunch of like, to it. Let's see. And this is just a gray enamel, but I kept it watered down and separated. And I put a little bit less plaster to this. But as you can see right there, that went on nice and smooth. This has the plaster in it, the Durban. And you can see right there, And if you can see inside here, I doubt you guys can, there's little chunks of plaster up in there. But as you see, it went on perfectly smooth there. And it may look a little clumpy, or I don't even know what to call it. Little specks of, it looked like there's little specks of something in your paint. Little clumps. And if you've done painting at any time, you see them little specks in there and you're like, oh, I didn't stir good enough or whatever. Those are going to dissolve very quickly. All there are small clumps of plaster that slowly started to migrate together and bond and are slowly building up. But the moisture that's in there is keeping them soft. So once the brush applies down, it does flatten them right out, and basically it just fills in. So it's sort of like, it's like you're plastering in all the holes as you paint at the same time. So basically just always keep your brush strokes going the same way. If you're going to change the whole thing. Don't brush this way and then this way and then this way and then this. Try to keep all your direction going all the same way. Your coats. You can put one coat this way and one coat this way. That don't matter. But as your layers go, keep each layer going the same direction. Stand in the same direction. The reason I say that is I have found out that when you stand in the opposite direction, you will have a tendency to take the paint off heavier in one spot than you do the other. And you're really not looking for that. I do it so lightly. I use the finest grit 220 or higher, and I will very lightly just basically to where my finger, when I go across, there's no friction, no sound, no nothing. It's smooth as glass. If you leave the sandy finish, which like that says you can do it without sanding or any of that stuff, you will end up with a rougher surface. If you want that surface to be, I've done quite a few tables now, and following the grain of your table or the grain of your paint, that's the most important. If you want a nice finish on the top of that table, sand in the same direction. You can stand in the other direction, but then you're going to have to put another coat on, because them are going to show through. You're going to see them little fine lines, sanding lines in that, because it's plaster. It's hard to explain unless you've done plaster work or any kind of drywall work. If you look at it very finely in a magnifying glass or something, you can see the small little grooves that have built up from that sandpaper. When you put anything else over that, it's going to stand out. So, like I said, with the multicolor things, you guys will get to see more. I'm going to do different parts of this. I'm going to film it and show you guys the different stages as I go. Like I said, I learned on the first couple I did, to paint this in different sections. So if you do these, this is what basically I have now. I'll show you guys how much I put together. I didn't do a whole lot to it. Let's see here. Okay, we gotta get you guys up a little more. See the top of it. There we go. That's the top half. I keep moving it. All I did was take the sides, I put some glue on them along here, on the base of it, put it down. This one here had that hole in the top, so I ran a drywall screw down through there, made sure that it didn't come through. Then I took my brad nailer and just nailed up through. On this one here, I just nailed through this way and through the back, and tacked them in. They're very sturdy. I could pick this thing up by these, as you see. It's very strong. Not just a little Gorilla Glue. You don't have to use your Gorilla Glue. You can use any kind of wood glue, anything. The bottom you see me put on, I glued that, just shot a couple of brads into it. And on my wife's, what I did was, this is versatile. You can do it this way also. Some people like it better that way, where you got this at the bottom. Let me draw you guys back so you guys can see the whole dang thing here. Okay, my tripod. Let me see what you guys are seeing here. Okay. Why does that seem? Is that my screen? I can't tell if you guys are seeing it or if it's dark. I'm sorry. And my tripod leg keeps wanting to just fall forward there. Okay, I'm trying to get my viewfinder into where I can see what you guys are seeing in the same light. Okay. You still don't have the full view of it. Am I zoomed in? Yeah, that's why my zoom was in. Somehow I must have bumped that. Okay, so here's what it is. You can have the shelf this way with that top piece there. That's how I did my wife's. All I did was flip it over, and that gives you a base on the bottom. This lip up here gives you a nice shelf up here. Then you're gonna have a shelf in here. So one thing about it is, once you make them like this, they are reversible. If you don't like it like this, then you can have a top on it and a shelf on the bottom, like so. And then you could put stuff up in here to set things taller, whatever you want it to be. And then you have your back. Now I come up with some pretty cool ideas. What I want to try to do is, my next one, this one would have been a good one, but I didn't have anything big enough to do it with. I want to put a picture in this. I want to take a picture and find something that is like an outside picture, like you're looking outside of a window. Someone where they took a picture of, someone took a picture outside of a window, and you have a background, a sunny forest or a beach scene where you're looking out and you see the beach right there with the waves crashing. But just that scene on here, and then to put that on the back of this. I haven't perfected, I haven't even really tried it. I'm thinking about trying that Mod Podge thing where you transfer a picture and then just clear coat it. Then I can put it up on here. I don't have to paint it. It'll save a little bit of time. But at the same time, if you were to hang something like this on the wall, it would look like you were looking through a window and have the landscape in the back picture. Or you could put maybe someone else's picture in there, or you could do it in two things with your shelf. Just decide where, mark where your shelf's going to be, put a picture on the top and a picture on the bottom, and you could put it to where you could split this in half, put your shelf, mark where your shelf's going to be, put a picture here and a picture here, and have them divide together on the shelf and make it, may God bless our house, you know, something to that effect. And you'll be able to see it once you put the things in there. Then you could put some angels in here or something to that effect, or say butterflies if you like butterflies. You could put a picture of a field with a bunch of butterflies and plants, and you could put your butterflies on there and collect them, or your whatever it might be that you like to collect, you know. But this could be your backdrop for it, and that was my point with this, was to sort of bring it to something that you could use it for like a curio cabinet type deal, a curio shelf. So that's what my next goal with these are. The next ones, once I get some drawers, I'm going to take them, I'm going to pull the back off the drawer, incorporate a picture on it, paint the whole shelf up, put it back on, and we'll see what we do, and I'll see how they come out. Like I said, there's that Mod Podge thing where you can transfer pictures. You could do like a picture of someone that passed away, or someone that you miss, or someone that you love a lot, and you could take their picture and mount it on here. And this could be like, say you just got married, you could put your wedding picture up here, and maybe a picture of the group of people that was in your wedding, and then put all your wedding stuff up on here, stuff like that. Just ideas. But transferring that picture, I've never done that. I don't know how to do it yet. I don't even know. I've watched a couple of videos of it. It's really neat. It looks like it's not as easy as you could think it would be. It's basically just pushing that back on and taking the ink and imposing it on here. But my problem is if it comes out backwards, what's that going to look like on here? So that's the experiment you would have to do, is getting it to be not backwards. You would have to print the picture backwards like they showed. I've seen a couple more, they basically print the picture reverse. So when you put it on here, it's upright. So it's all that mixed together to getting that together in one thing. So once I can figure all that out together, I will be doing one like that also. The chalk paint of this, like I said, it's pretty simple. You know, if you've done any kind of painting, it's all the same stuff. Chalk paint, like I said, is just more forgiving. All your little cracks and crevices are going to fill, and you don't have to worry about any of that. Like when I do furniture before, any flaws you had to go through with a filler, fill them in, make sure there was no flaws in it, none of these kind of little things like this, divots. Basically, like I said, with these, the only reason you wanted to cover these, like say on the bottom here, you can see that all of them where I had this one. That's why I put that down facing. But a lot of these here, you're never going to see them. And I'll show you when I get them done. These two big ones are a little sunken in. So I may take a little bit of that, mix it, and just glide over it just to make sure that they're smooth. But it depends on if I'm going to use that for the top and do it this way, like I have done some of them. Or if I'm going to use that as the base and flip it over the other way and keep that as the top. So it all depends on what you want to use it for. I still haven't decided which way it's going to go yet. So it's basically, I do it as I paint it and then I see what happens. If I do it this way, it's much easier to paint because I can run my gray and black lines in crossways, horizontal. And same thing on the base here. What I do is normally when I do them, I will show you guys that. I take the paint. This is going to be gray. This is going to be gray. And then I'm going to take a black and a white and I'm going to paint lines into it to give it that wood effect. That's how I did the gray and black one and white one that you've seen in the picture before, if you watched the video before this one. But what I learned was trying to get a brush in here to do that is really hard to get nice even, because basically what I got to do is pull it in with a brush. Let me grab my brush here. What I'm doing is when I get a brush, I will take it from here and brush inward to give me the dark lines in the corners and then feather them out towards the center. Well, you don't have a whole lot of space in here to do that. So when you do it, you've got to have smaller strokes, which gives you a little less effect. Where on here I can draw full length strokes to give me that long wood effect. If that's what you want, if you want to just be plain gray and white, well, you wouldn't have to worry about it. It'd be a lot easier to paint. Because when you come down in here, bringing the white down is tedious. Same up underneath here, because I always do the top the same way. So I learned in the other one by having the shelf. Like I had the shelf already installed there. So I had to do the same thing on here and then the underneath, which was even more fun. Trying to get underneath here to do that, flipping it over. And then I had to come back and clean up my line in between where this met inside of here. Like I said here, where your seam is. Then you're going to do some really delicate painting of trying to make that line nice and clean. You can tape it if you wanted to afterwards. You can run a thing of tape, run your white, vice versa. That'll work. But I'm afraid of the tape messing up my paint afterwards. That means I'd have to fully let these dry completely, put the tape on it, go back to my white, and vice versa. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the white on the whole thing, bring my white around, then I'll come back with the gray, which will be easier to run a line along the base. The top will be nothing. I do these edges all the way around to make sure that that board matches and separates. So it's a totally different situation of each one that you build. Make it easier on yourself. Like this, leaving the back off. I had the shelf in here. I had the back on. So you can see what kind of problems it gave me. We got that on there. And then you have a shelf in the middle. Now you have to try to paint that back in between the shelf and everything else. That was a mistake that I learned that I will not make again. So now when I do it, I will paint this all white. Paint my sides white. Get my grays in. Get everything done. Then I'll put the back on, tack that on. Once I know everything's fully dry and everything, then I'll tack my back in, put my shelf in, do any little touch-ups after that, and it'll make it probably a lot quicker, a lot better. That other one did have small little tiny flaws in it, paint-wise, maybe a dab here, but I'm very particular about my stuff. That is another reason. I'm over-particular about how I paint. It's got to be perfect, and I will keep doing and doing and doing and doing and doing and doing it until it's to my standards.